Wellness Center, and you are listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Thursday, September 28th, and we are coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Centers and streaming with you on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM Global Christian Nation, and 987radio.com, and the Live 365 app all over the world. So hopefully you guys are having a great day. Hope you did have a great day. And I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. Last night we had a fantastic show. For me, I don't know if it was fantastic for you or not, but we had a great time breaking down The Body by Bill Bryson, at least the first two chapters. And every time I read that book, it's really cool it's just how packed it is with information of things that you might not have realized or learned, and so it's kind of fun to go back over some of those things again last night. And tonight, I'm going to carry forward some of the things that we talked about earlier in the week. And I'm going to try to see if I can answer a few questions that I have received throughout the week and a few statements that I received out the week. And it's going to be a very simple show tonight. The things that kind of hit me as I was talking to patients for these last few days were some of the very simple things that I wanted to go over and just kind of explain to people that maybe they didn't understand exactly what that meant. And it's going to be a little bit of a repeat of some of the things that we've already talked about on the show. But some of the people who've been listening to us, it's like, I think repetition really does help. And listening to it over and over again, and maybe not exactly said the same way. So because I had some questions today, and we were going over the heart rate variability in one of our nutritional reports, and so we were talking about some things in there, and the couple that I was talking to just were saying, okay, now help me. What exactly does that term mean? And I've done a lot of reading, and I've discovered that that it's that I just don't. I'm having a hard time with some of the concepts. And so I thought, I need to slow down just a little bit and break down some of these concepts for you so that you get a better feeling of what's going on, and so that maybe you can follow a little bit better. And it takes me back to the idea of the time that I was in chiropractic school. And when I started chiropractic school, it was the fourth time that I had thought about going to chiropractic school. I went to chiropractic school when I was 31 years old, because my previous life, as some of you guys know, I was coaching college football for 6 years after I played college football. And I thought that was going to be my life. I thought I was going to be a football coach my whole life. And the good Lord had plans for me that I didn't know about at the time. And so he was preparing me for the life that I was going to live afterwards. And through my 20s, and then I was 31 when I started chiropractic school. And so I got to chiropractic school, but I had thought about going to chiropractic school several times before. And each time that I thought about going, there was some sort of roadblock that made me say, I don't think I can do this, or what do I know? The very first time I remember I was declaring my major in college, and I had to decide, am I going to be a football coach or am I going to be a chiropractor? And I thought to myself, I literally remember where I was. I was at Eastern New Mexico University in Greyhound Arena, the gym there, and I was going to meet my advisor. And I was going in there, and I thought to myself, what do I know about being a chiropractor? I don't know anything about that. My dad was a football coach. That's really what I know. I've been playing football since I was in first grade. I'll just go do that, right? Which was kind of an interesting way to make a decision. It was based on fear, based on the lack of resources, based on the idea that maybe I wasn't good enough to do it. And then a couple of other times as I went along, I thought about doing it. And I remember getting that, and I may have mentioned this on the show before. I remember getting that first packet of the first trimester of chiropractic school, and it talked about biochemistry and anatomy and biology and all that stuff that we had to take. And I just remember having a spirit of fear overcome me, and just close the folder and put it in the desk, and then just go on with my life. And finally, when it was time for me to go to chiropractic school, everything just kind of fell into place. It was almost the easiest thing I ever did ever. It was just I had a place to live. I got to live with my parents. Uh, we found a great church where Leslie and the kids could go and be taken care of while I was studying. There was a good group of young families there together that helped kind of held us all together. Parker College of Chiropractic at the time in Dallas was a fabulous place to go. It was so great. It was run so well. But I remember being in the library one night, not understanding the words. And I remember saying to myself, "Okay, Jason, you gotta get this straight, right? You gotta understand, where is the line of scrimmage? Like, where I was in the library, I was in one of the meeting rooms, I had my book open. It was saying stuff like nephritis and hema something and all this stuff, and I was like, "I don't understand these words. I can't figure out what these people are trying to say." And so what I did is I stopped and I thought to myself, okay, let's put it in football terms because I understand football terms. And I thought to myself, okay, where's the line of scrimmage? Where's the offense? Where's the defense? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I had to break down those words. And I had the same conversation with a student who's in chiropractic school right now. I had the same conversation with him last Saturday night he was in town for a CrossFit competition. And I was like, look, there's only 26 letters in the alphabet, and I know all 26 of those letters. I learned them when I was about 2, right? So, they're not gonna trick me with a letter that I don't understand. Just because they're putting these letters in certain ways that I haven't ever heard of them before or don't necessarily know what they mean, doesn't mean that I can't figure this out. And so, I started breaking down the definitions of these things so that I could understand them better, like nephritis, right? Well, when they're talking about like they're talking about your kidney. And when they say itis, they're talking about inflammation. So I thought, well, instead of them saying kidney inflammation, they say nephritis. Okay, it means exactly the same thing. And I started breaking down those definitions like that, one after the other. And all of a sudden it was like, I got this. The intimidation went away, like the fear factor just completely went away. And I was able to just rock my way through chiropractic school. It was great. The whole process of and all the tests we took and the national board test that we took. The national board test we had to take our part 1 and part 2 boards was 6 parts, and there was 110 questions in each part. So there was 660 questions that we had to take for part 1 boards and part 2 boards. And then part 3 was just 3 parts, I think, but there was a physical therapy part that went with that. And then part 4, we had to do a physical exam on someone and break down a bunch of x-ray film and findings on x-rays. And so it was the foundational understanding of these words that helped me. And what I ran into today was some foundational understanding of words that people don't understand. And it's not helping them be better in their lives. It's really it's creating confusion for us, right? And I want to go through some of those words and see if maybe we can help the break down some of the confusion that some of the people are having out there so that you have a better understanding of what those words mean. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. If you have any questions while we're going through this and you want to send me a text or you want to make a comment on Facebook and there's a sentence or a saying or a definition in health that you don't understand, then I'll help you answer it tonight. I'll break it down for you. If I don't know the answer, we'll just look it up and I'll show you how I go about finding the answer to those things. Like last night, we were reading that the Body Book by Bill Bryson, right? And there were words in there that I couldn't pronounce. There were things that I never even said before, or I don't even know how that's pronounced, right? So I don't there's still words after 19 years of being a chiropractic and being 52 years old that I'm hearing words on a from a wellness standpoint that I don't even understand. But I have learned how to look them up. I've learned how to put them in a sentence that I've learned to know whether or not I need to look them up, right? There's some words that I just don't have to know. I can just understand the sentence and what they're talking about. And it's like, look, I can spend the next 3 hours breaking down this one word and how it works and where it fits and which part of the body makes it and how it breaks down in some sort of receptor or whatever. Or I can just say, you know what? I don't need to know that piece today, but I understand kind of what they're talking about. And that helps me move forward. And so I think that the ones tonight. So if you have a question, about anything that you don't understand, or just something that's super simple that you just don't understand, just send me a text. Our text line, if you're listening to us on the radio, is 806-794-0400. And I've got it going across the screen if you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube or X. And so if you want to send me a text, I've got my phone open right here. I'll get your text. And then if you have a question that you'd like to send, you can send it through Facebook or YouTube or X, and I should be able to get it on the screen here, and then I can answer that for you. So the first one that I wanted to get into tonight is it's two different words, and it's talking about our autonomic nervous system. And autonomic means the part of our nervous system that we don't think about controlling. Like if you want to make a fist, you're thinking about that, right? You can actually, whether you look at your hand or you don't look at your hand, your brain actually thinks about, all right, I'm going to close my hand and I'm going to make a fist. If I want to point at something, I'm thinking about how I want to form my hand or my fingers so that I can point right at something, right? That part of your nervous system is called your somatic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is that part that you think about that's kind of a brain to muscle type of nervous system right there. The autonomic nervous system is the part of the nervous system that you don't think about. That's the part of the nervous system that is running your heart. Like, are you thinking about making your heart beat right now? Are you thinking about speeding up your heart or slowing down your heart? Are you thinking about increasing stomach acid right now? Are you thinking about making hormones? Are you thinking about making estrogen right now? Right? You're not thinking about that stuff. You're not thinking about whether or not you should contract your blood vessels or open up your blood vessels. You're not thinking about any of that type of stuff, right? So, smooth muscle organs and glands is what your autonomic nervous system controls. And so your autonomic nervous system is broken up into two words. It's two parts. It's called your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. And I want you to understand that, because if you're going to learn about health, you have to understand those two words. Like you don't have to, but it sure would help you a lot if you understood those two words right there. So the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight nervous system. That's the part of our nervous system that kicks in whenever we are threatened by something. So if there's a tiger in the room, if all of a sudden you get threatened, if you walk out on your back porch and there's a snake on your back porch, you're going to have a sympathetic response. And your sympathetic nervous system is going to prepare you to fight or flight. You're either going to fight the snake or you're going to run from the snake. Those two things are going to happen really quickly. So think about all the things that happen when you have to fight or run. right? What are the things that are important in your body, and what are the things that are not important in your body? And usually the sympathetic nervous system in nature lasts about 90 seconds or less. Like if you see a snake on your back porch, you're not probably going to just sit there and look at the snake and stand there for 4 hours, right? You're not going to stay there for 2 or 3 weeks. That's going to be a scary moment, and you're going to fight or you're going to run, one or the other. And what your brain is going to do is it's going to take all of the things that's going on in your body that are important for longer than 90 seconds, and it's basically going to shut them down. It's going to turn them down really low. Like it might scare the crap out of you, right? It might scare you to death. You might pee your pants. I know that's gross, but it's like, okay, why would you do that? What would cause a person to do that if that would make them actually wet their pants because they were so scared? Well, what happens is your brain, in the moment that you see that threatening thing, is going to decide, do I need to keep this fluid inside my body? Or is it important for me at all to control my bladder right now? Or should I use all the resources that I have at my disposal to fight or run from this snake? And so that's what it's going to do. It doesn't care. It might make you throw up, right? Because what it's going to do is the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to shut down digestion. Whenever you are under sympathetic response, your digestive system is going to down regulate itself really quickly. It doesn't, you do not need to digest your lunch if you're only going to live 90 more seconds. It doesn't make any difference. So if you're only going to live 90 seconds, you don't need any digestion. The second thing is you do not need an immune system. An immune system is for to fight off bacteria and viruses and all those little bugs that make us sick, right? And our cancer cells, like we learned last night, to get rid of our cancer cells. But if we're only going to live 90 more seconds, we don't need an immune system. It doesn't make any difference. So we'll just get rid of the immune system. We'll just turn it off, right? I don't need an immune system right now. The next thing is reproduction. And for all of you adults, you know what that means, right? You know how you reproduce. And let me ask you this. If you open the back porch and there was a snake on your back porch and your spouse winked at you and said, you look really cute in that shirt today, do you think that would lead to anything while you got a snake on your back porch to deal with? No. As sexy as that sounds, that is not going to happen, right? We're not going to reproduce in the middle of a snake fight or a tiger fight or an alligator fight, right? That's not going to happen. So reproduction is going to shut down. So what are the things that are involved in reproduction, right? Like testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and a cycle for a woman, right? Those things are going to be disrupted. And you probably at some point in your life have had a stressful, if you're a woman and you're a very old woman or have had any years on you, you've probably had a moment in your life where you've been so stressed out that you actually might have missed your period, right? That happens because your brain just says, no, we're not going to deal with reproduction right now. How about all this deal with these ovarian cysts and these polycystic ovary disease and all this stuff that's going on, right? Like endometriosis and all the other things, right? All the disruption that goes on in the reproductive system. Men have all kinds of problems with their reproductive system when they're under stress, right? Nothing performs properly when they're under stress because their brain is not thinking about that, and it's going to take that part of their system and turn it off. And one of the big last things, and there's other things, but is posture. Your brain is not worried about sitting up straight in the middle of a tiger fight. It doesn't care if you have perfect posture whenever you or need to fight or run. It doesn't care about that. So basically, the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response, and it fires up all of the parts of your body that have something to do with fighting or running. It's going to increase your blood pressure. It's going to increase your heart rate. It's going to increase your glucose in your blood. You're going to get lots of glucose in the bloodstream because you need that for fighting and running, right? And then everything in the core, if you just put your hand on your throat or and then you just went straight down the front of you, everything in the core is going to shut down whenever you're in sympathetic stress, fight or flight response. Okay? So now let's look at the other side of that. Let's say you've either killed the snake, gotten away from the snake ran off. That moment is now over. Well, as soon as that moment is over, and usually it's over in less than 90 seconds, now what happens is your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. And your parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for all the things that are longer than 90 seconds from now. So is it important to digest lunch if you're going to live for another 50 years? The answer is yes, right? If your brain realizes, hey, we're going to live till tomorrow, it's gonna say, well, we better digest our food now. So what's it gonna do? It's gonna bring the blood supply back to the core. It's gonna bring the blood supply back to your digestive tract, and it's gonna say, okay, now we need to increase our digestive juices. We need to increase the peristalsis, which means the contraction of our digestive tract so that we can move through food through our digestive tract. Like our esophagus needs to work properly, right? That those things are important whenever if we're going to live till tomorrow. So our digestion all comes back online, right? We get saliva in our mouth. We can now taste things. Those things become important to us whenever we're in parasympathetic rest and recover. This is the time that we heal after the tiger fight. So our immune system is back online. Now we're really interested in bacteria and viruses. We got to stay healthy over a long period of time. So our immune system has to function properly. And there's all kinds of little parts to our immune system, our white blood cells, and all those different kinds of white blood cells. There's all kinds of different interleukins and all those things that are chemicals and hormones and all those things that are in our body that have something to do with us living till tomorrow. So that's parasympathetic. Our parasympathetic nervous system, our brain is going to use on the cell wall the receptors that respond to the chemistry of parasympathetic chemistry. So our brain is going to be able to increase our digestion. It's going to increase our immune system. Now reproduction matters. If you're going to live till tomorrow, you might need to pass on your lineage, right? So now reproduction matters. Now estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of those things now make a difference. You need your cycle to be right if you're a woman. If you're in, that's when you're in parasympathetic rest and recover response, right? And then the last thing is posture, balance, and coordination. That all comes from your cerebellum. And the cerebellum is the little part of the brain that controls about 1,000 other things, but it controls balance, coordination, and posture. So your cerebellum turns off whenever you're stressed out, sympathetic, and it turns on when you have parasympathetic. So posture matters if you're going to live for a long period of time. Now, the way that your body is being distributed, the weight of your body is being distributed on your frame matters, and it helps you live a long period of time if you have good posture. If you're slouched and you have bad posture, you put like loads and forces on the bones in the wrong direction, and it causes you to break down those bones. We talked about that on Monday or Tuesday, right? You have abnormal forces on those bones, which causes bone spurs, or it causes degenerative disc disease, which is not a disease at all. It's just it's abnormal movement of that joint over time. And and those are the things that go along with parasympathetic. Parasympathetic receptors on the cell wall, they will start to deteriorate as people start to lose their health. And they will start to be in a state where they cannot rest and recover. And that's kind of what we went through on our I'll cover a little bit of that. We're coming up on a break on the radio. I'll cover a little bit of that after the break about how we measure our heart rate variability with the Nerve Express and exactly how the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems work. And then I want to get to insulin resistance one more time. So when we because that was another question that one of the people had today was, what exactly is insulin resistance? Like like what does it mean when we have insulin resistance? So when we get back from the break, we will break down, we'll look at a little bit of that nerve express that we have in our office, the heart rate variability and kind of what it means. And when you get a score, and then we'll look at insulin resistance one more time so that you can kind of get a better idea of exactly what that means. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me. Text them to me, 806-794-0400, and we'll get your questions answered tonight. We're trying to work on some definitions so that you can have a better grasp of the wellness that you're trying to achieve. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, for all the Facebook group, one little piece of house cleaning that I wanted to do tonight, and this is just kind of fun more than anything else, but is Leslie got me some new insulated cups. So if you've seen me drink from the cup the last few nights, what I told her as I said, "Hey, Les, get us some cups for the office so that I can put my tea in the cups." Well, one of the patients came in this afternoon and they were like, "Oh, doc, what do you got you, a red Solo cup?" And so we kind of had a laugh about that this afternoon. And I was like, "Look, it's iced tea with stevia in it." And I use the stevia, I use the Cow brand stevia right here. If you've never heard of it, it's the best one I've gotten so far. That's the non-sugar sweetener. And so that's what we use. That's what we use is the Cow brand stevia. And so this red Solo cup is full of iced tea with crushed ice from HTO, and that's all. So I'm I just thought that was funny because my patient today asked me if I've been to a lot of keg parties or something, and I had to laugh. And I'm like, no, I actually have never had a full beer. I had about a quarter of a beer one time on a really hot day in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And other than that, that's the only beer I've ever had my entire life. I used to drink some margaritas back in the day, maybe some mixed drinks, but that was way back in the old days. I've completely given up alcohol at this point in my life and really can't. If I'm not going to have any more bread, I really can't figure out why I would ever have another drink of alcohol. So that stuff is way in the past. But so just in case you're wondering, if you see me have a drink on the show, I see patients all the way up until 6 o'clock. So we started this morning at 6 with exercise program, and we had 6, 7, and 8. We had classes this morning, and then I started with patients, and I was with patients all day long. And the last one I finished with was about 10 minutes till 6. And I got me a tea, went and washed my hands, got ready for the show, and then we started the show. So I do enjoy the glass of tea to as we're working through. And sometimes I get a little, my voice gets a little tired, so it helps to have a little bit of hydration right there. So just in case you're wondering, I'm not drinking any alcohol in my red Solo cup. It is insulated, so it doesn't sweat all over my desk and cause any sort of problems. So, okay, everybody, we're back. I hope everybody's coming along with what we're doing tonight on the show. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It's Thursday, September 28th, and we are live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And what we're breaking down tonight is just some definitions. So if you just to make things really clear so that you have a good understanding of what it means. And so what we were talking about in the before the break was the definition of sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. And that's part of our autonomic nervous system. It's the automatic part of our nervous system. And so the automatic part is that the part of our nervous system that we don't have to think about. Smooth muscles, organs, and glands. You're not thinking about your heart. You're not thinking about making your spleen work. You're not thinking about making your liver work right now. It's happening all under the radar, and that's the autonomic nervous system. And when your brain wants to speed up your heart, then it fires your sympathetic nervous system. When your brain wants to increase your digestive juices or function, then it fires up your parasympathetic nervous system. And so there's different ways that your brain works. And so in our office, we do a heart rate variability, and the heart rate variability kind of gives us, it breaks down into, it gives us a graph, and it gives us two different, it's like having a big plus sign right in the middle of the page. And it's measuring the parasympathetic activity on one end, on the horizontal line, and it's measuring the sympathetic activity on the vertical line. And let's just make sure we got that right. Let's don't turn the show off because of the big words. We're measuring parasympathetic activity, which means we're measuring how the rest and recover part of our body is working, right? That's what we're trying to see. And the way it works is the far right side of the line is the positive, and the far left side of the line is the negative. And so we've got little markers along the line to tell us when we do the test, we put one of those little polar straps across you that is measuring your heart rate, and it's measuring all the beats and taking all the recordings of it. And then we have you go through a whole series of breathing exercises. We have you lay on your back and then breathe normally. And then we record the information. Then we have you set up. And when you set up, that should create a sympathetic response. And that should be alarming to you, because when you set up from laying down, the blood flows out of your head. And that's an alarm for your brain, because your brain really likes oxygen and it likes glucose, and it doesn't want to run out of blood. So as soon as you start to set up and you start to drain the blood from your head, what will happen is your blood vessels will start to swell, because you're pouring all that blood from your head into your blood vessels, and that's going to create a sympathetic response, and it's going to make the little smooth muscles around your blood vessels contract, and that's going to cause the blood to get pushed back up into the head. And that's the sympathetic response. So when you're laying down and you set up, you get a sympathetic response. Then we're going to ask you to sit there and breathe for a minute. And then we do this little move called a Valsalva. And the Valsalva is where you actually blow on your thumb and you bear down like you're having a bowel movement, and you blow hard on your thumb. And it basically stresses out your body as maximum as it can. And so we're trying to see if you have any reserves inside the body. So what we'll get is we'll get a starting point from where you're resting, and it shows up in a blue dot. I mean, in a blue dot, and it's measured on the horizontal line is the parasympathetic, and the vertical line is the sympathetic. Remember, the fight or flight. And so what we want to see whenever we graph out this heart rate variability test is we want to see a person start at +1 and +1, meaning we want your parasympathetic activity to be turned up just a little bit. The rest and recover part of you, when you're just laying on a table, breathing just calmly, the rest and recover part of you should be working. You should be able to just be laying there with no threat, no sense of urgency, nothing bothering you, and just resting and recovering. And if we measure that, it's going to show up on the right side of the plus sign, and it's going to say, okay, that person's parasympathetic nervous system is working the way it's supposed to. And then we're going to look at the vertical line that's going up and down, and it's positive when it goes up and it's negative when it goes down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, we want the sympathetic nervous system to be turned up just one notch. So if we graph it out, the dot should be +1 and +1 on the graph. And what that tells us is that you are resting and recovering, and everything is working the way it's supposed to work, but you're also ready if you do see a snake, if you do see a tiger, if you do have to respond, you're ready to respond. And that's what we get when we graph out your heart rate variability. And those of you who have had that test, if you got your notebooks at home and you want to look at it again, that's what that means right there. And then that's the resting point. So when you set up, what we're expecting to see is we're expecting to see an increase in the sympathetic, because that's a stress response, and we're looking to see a decrease in the parasympathetic. That's the angle that we're looking for when on the heart rate variability graph. We're looking for increased sympathetics and then decreased parasympathetics when you set up. That's a proper way to start. And then when you do the Valsalva move, what we're looking for is an increase in both of them. Now we want the sympathetic and the parasympathetic to increase. It's very stressful. We want you to calm down and fight. Calm down and fight at the same time. And that's what we're looking for in a response to the heart rate variability test. Now, I know this is confusing, but just stick with me right there, especially if you're on the radio. I know this can be confusing trying to follow this on the radio. But what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, is your body at rest, functioning the way it's supposed to function? And when you're responding to the stress, a minor stress versus a full-blown stress, are you doing what you're supposed to do? And you know what we get a lot of times? What we get is a person that's starting in the wrong quadrant. They're starting over here in the left quadrant of the plus sign instead of the right quadrant of the plus sign. And what that's telling us is that when they're just laying there resting or laying on the table and just breathing, they are not resting and recovering. Their parasympathetic nervous system has been decreased. They are not resting and recovering. They do not know it. They do not realize it, but they're exhausted. They're getting exhausted. And that part of their nervous system is like starting to degenerate. When your brain wants to reach the cells of your stomach and make your stomach acid increase, they're not being able to do that. The brain is not being able to do that with your stomach because those receptors on your cells in your stomach are not working right. And that's causing it to all of a sudden just like, it's like, all right, now we're not resting. We're not getting the recovery that we need. That doesn't mean we're not sleeping. It just means that our body is not functioning the way it's supposed to function. And what's keeping us functioning in our day is our sympathetic, our fight or flight response. We're just having to fight just to stay above water. We're just having to fight all day long just to stay above water. And one of the things that I get from that is the comment, Doc, I'm exhausted. I'm tired all the time, right? And I'm exhausted because I'm not resting and recovering, and it seems like I'm functioning just fine. I'm just tired all the time. And that's causing me to be, that's not good, right? Because the next thing that's going to happen is that person's sympathetic nervous system is going to give up, and all of a sudden they are going to move into the left lower quadrant of the plus sign. And this is where they're going to get sick. This is where disease and sickness kicks in. And that's on the lower left quadrant of the plus sign. So if you're listening to us on the radio and you just put a plus right in the middle of your paper. Where you want to be is on the top right hand corner. You want to be on the top, the area that is the top right quadrant. You want to be resting, but able to fight when you need to. But as soon as you move over to the top left hand corner, that means that you're not resting and recovering. You're just fighting, which is exhausting. How many of you said, I had a patient this afternoon that came in. She's like, do you have anything to help me? I'm just tired all the time. I'm just tired all the time. I just go to sleep as soon as I get home, right? I'm just tired all the time. Even though she sleeps fine, she's not resting and recovering. As soon as her sympathetic nervous system gives up, she's going to be down in the bottom left quadrant. And then that's when she's going to really start to get sick. So we test that in our office. It's part of our nutritional protocol. Because then people say, well, why exactly would you care about that from the nutritional protocol? Well, because if you that's one of the hard things that when you listen to social media people to help you with your health, it's so difficult because they're talking to a range of people. Like right now, I'm on Facebook and YouTube and X, right? Well, being on these platforms, I could potentially be talking to millions of people. I know I'm not yet, but someday we will, right? But when you're talking to millions of people, it's really hard to be specific about what one person needs. It's really hard. So it's if you're getting your information from an internet doctor, if you're getting your personal information from an internet doctor, you have to understand that it's not specific for you. They say, well, hey, you should take some collagen, or you should take some medium chain triglycerides, some NCT oil, or maybe you guys should all take some whatever. Like here's some sort of supplement or some sort of thing or some sort of deal, right? Well, how do you know exactly what's good for you? How do you know exactly what you need, right? And who's testing that for you? And that's where we got this idea of, hey, I really got convicted. Dr. Fraley, that was on the show a couple of weeks ago, he's the one that told me, like, Jason, you got to do better, man. You got to do a better job of understanding some of the technology that we can use to help people. And we're really working on that. But this heart rate variability test tells me a lot, because I get a lot of the people that I test are in the top left-hand quadrant. They're over at the top left-hand quadrant. I've had a couple of them who are down here in this bottom left-hand quadrant. And that gets your attention in a hurry, because it's like, hey, look, their rest and recover part of their nervous system is already down regulated, and their sympathetic fight or flight part of their nervous system has quit too. These people are in bad trouble. We've got to get after that really fast. And when I see someone in the top left quadrant, what it's telling me is, hey, look, the only thing that's keeping you above water is your fight or flight response. You're having to fight every day just to get through the day. And your body's not going to be able to sustain that over a period of time. You've got to be able to rest and recover, right? You got to get out of that sympathetic response. And when you got that sympathetic response is firing your adrenal glands and refiring that whole idea of what we've talked about multiple times. One of the guys said, hey, that student that I was talking to Saturday night, he's like, hey, doc, the up and to the right and over to the left, those two arrows you have on your show, what is that? What is that? Is that what you mean by up and the right and over to the left? Yes, that's what I mean by up and to the right and over to the left. The right side of the brain is what deals with the sympathetic nervous system. The left side of the brain is what deals with the parasympathetic nervous system. So we've got to get the information out of the right side and over to the left side in order for our brain to calm down. If we don't get that done, then what happens to us is we get stuck over there in sympathetics, and our parasympathetics start to lose their charge and they start to weaken. So this sympathetic parasympathetic brain information to me is the same thing as being over here in the top left quadrant on the heart rate variability. When I see that, I know this isn't happening. And you know what I know is going to happen? All of the things that are revolved in sympathetic activity are going to be firing up. Heart rate, blood pressure. Have you ever gone to check your blood pressure at your doctor's office and it was high, and your blood pressure and your doctor broke down exactly why your sympathetic nervous system was firing and you have high blood pressure? No. I'm telling you, 90% of you that have had that are on high blood pressure medication, your doctor did not break down whether or not your right side, left side brain was firing properly. They didn't do a heart rate variability study, and they're not telling you exactly what's going on with you. What does this mean right here? This means that everything in the core is going to shut down. Digestion, immune system, reproduction, posture. Those things are going to shut down when a person is stuck in sympathetic response. You're going to have acid reflux when you're stuck in sympathetic response. When you're stuck in fight or flight response, your stomach is not going to work right. Your digestive tract, you're going to have irritable bowel or constipation or any of those things that goes along with disrupted digestive function. And if you have disrupted digestive function, the first thing you should think about is, am I firing this way? You know, it's really cool. I've been studying cold water immersion here lately. I found this guy named Wim Hof and the Wim Hof method. And they call him the Iceman. He spent his life being cold, and they wanted to study him. How can he do this? Like, he can hold his breath for 7 minutes underwater. He swam. He's got 26 world records or something like that. He's an amazing guy. He climbed Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro in a pair of shorts. It's crazy what the things he could do. But what he's done is he's learned how to control his autonomic nervous system. So there's cryotherapy, right? You might have heard that. You might have been exposed to cryotherapy. You might have been exposed to dunking yourself in cold water. I'm not saying that you should do that. There's techniques, to be very careful about doing that. But listen to what happens in the body whenever you dunk yourself into cold water. They say that you get somewhere in the vicinity of a 300 to 400% increase in adrenaline, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine is the adrenaline in the brain. Norepinephrine is the adrenaline in the brain. Well, guess which side of the brain has an affinity for adrenaline? Your right brain. The right hemisphere has an affinity for adrenaline. So what happens when you immerse in cold water? Or submerge yourself in cold water, right? If you dip yourself in cold water, if you take a cold shower, you get a massive increase in adrenaline, which has an affinity for the right brain. So what are you doing right there? You are firing up that right hemisphere. You are increasing the voltage to the right hemisphere. But you know what the amazing part of that is next? And this is what Dr. Huberman taught me. The really cool part of of cold water therapy, the reason that people are so fired up about it is because you know what follows that 300 or 400% increase in adrenaline? A 2.5 times increase in dopamine. A 2.5 times increase in dopamine. Chocolate and sex is a 2-point increase in dopamine. Cocaine is a 2.5 increase in dopamine. Like, you're getting the same amount as if you got a shot of cocaine if you get under cold water. And which side of the brain has an affinity for dopamine? The left side. So when you submerge yourself in cold water, what are you doing? You are firing the up and to the right and over to the left side of your brain. That's what you're doing. That's why it works. And what does that do for you? Remember the reason Wim Hof got started all that stuff and really got into it? He was doing it as a kid, but his wife committed suicide and they had 5 children. And he was left, these are his words. He was left, he lost the love of his life, and he had he had no money and he had 5 kids. And he went into this major depression. And what happened? How did he get out of it? What he says is he got back to nature. He started doing breathing exercises. And the breathing exercises he was doing was getting cortisol because it was creating a sympathetic response. And that was firing the adrenaline, which was increasing right brain function. And then he was doing cold immersion. So he's breathing and doing cold. By breathing and doing cold, he was increasing his adrenaline. He was increasing right brain function to the point of filling up the glass and tipping it over to the left. He was able to get out of, remember when we broke down the body keeps the score? He was able to get out of that lower amygdala right brain post-traumatic stress response by using cold immersion, cold water submersion, I'm not using that right word, by dipping himself in cold water. He was able to override this mechanism because he was increasing by such a massive amount the amount of adrenaline that was firing to that right brain. And then what Dr. Huberman's all happy about is that you get a 2.5 increase in dopamine for hours after you're in the cold. So it makes you feel good on that side. So you're getting the dopamine. Now, the difference between the chocolate and the cold is that the chocolate doesn't give you the adrenaline. You don't get adrenaline from eating chocolate or drinking beer or having refined carbohydrates. That's what you're trying to do. Sugar, right? The sugar, you're trying to get the dopamine from the sugar, but you're not getting any adrenaline from the sugar. So because of that, you're not getting the up and to the right and over to the left brain function. You're just getting an increased stimulation of left side brain function, but you're stuck in right side sympathetic response. It's taken me a long time to figure that out. And I know if you're listening to me right now, you may be lost. You may not understand what I'm saying. But if I were you, I would just go back and watch this last segment again. Just go back and watch it again and watch it again and watch it again until you can kind of understand what I'm saying right there. Because it's taken me 23 years of work. It's like, it's so cool. It's just like I've never had anybody on this planet explain that to me. I've never had it broken down, and it's taken a multitude of people. And my favorite guy, and I'm going to get to this book eventually, but my favorite guy is The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist. He was the glue. He was the glue. And if I could ever get him to come to Lubbock, I'd buy him the biggest steak in West Texas. This right here is like the book that is just put the glue for me. That's just been so inspiring to me because it took all of the people that I've ever learned from, all the people that I learned from in school, all the people that I learned from since school, every seminar that I've been to, all the things that I've done in 23 years. It just came together with that book, and it explained this to me. It explained up and to the right, over to the left. I'm telling you, if there's one thing, it's like my signature understanding. That right there. I know you can't see it on the radio, but that right there is health. I should copyright that right there. That right there is health. It took me a long time to figure that out. If you can get your brain to do that, your brain's going to set your body in order. Your brain's going to fire the way it's supposed to fire. And you're going to live an optimum, awesome life if you can figure out how to do that. So if you're not doing that, your body's going to try to search and fight and figure out how to fix it. If you're up and to the right and you don't have the over to the left, if you're up and to the right You're stuck in sympathetic response, fight or flight. All the mid-core stuff is going to shut down. It's this right here, over to the left. It's the over to the left that is the key to health. Man, we're out of time. That was awesome stuff. I hope you're getting it. If you got any questions, let me know. I really appreciate everything. I appreciate you guys. And go back and watch this. If you don't get it, watch it again. Watch it again. That right there is some good stuff. I hope you guys have a great night. We're going to have a recorded show tomorrow. We're going to go back over the end of Alzheimer's, and then I'll be back live on Monday. So you guys have a great weekend.